F1 Focus Instant Reaction with Huw Griffin.
Qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix. The rubber has finally hit the road. No more time for sandbagging. Time for everyone to show their hands. And it turns out the McLaren have been playing the ultimate game of poker. Nip and tuck here and there with the likes of Verstappen, even with Russell, through most of qualifying and then into Q3. Boom! Half a second. Thanks for coming. Pole in the bag, no problem. Ominous for the rest of the pack, I think it has to be said. We thought the McLaren were going to be the fastest car, but as Lando Norris himself said on the cool-down lap, this car is unbelievable. If it's going to be like that all season, it could be a long one. Ferrari. We've been bigging up this rivalry between McLaren and Ferrari, the proper rivalry back in Formula 1. 8 tenths, 6 tenths down. I don't think anybody saw that coming. They don't seem to be panicking. Lewis, at least in his post-qualifying press conference, seemed to be somewhat relaxed, but he's been putting forward this persona so far in his Ferrari career of smiling, happy to be here. I don't think that they're too worried about their race pace. They had a messy qualifying session, honestly, Ferrari. They tried to do this thing in Q2 with a hot lap, a cool down lap and going again, which meant they were carrying probably more fuel than the rest. But it didn't seem to work out. They didn't pursue it in Q3. Charles did a run out of fresh tyres. Lewis managed to have a fresh set but didn't improve. That's a little bit worrying that he didn't manage to get a better performance from the fresh set. We think that their pace in the race will be better, but in the rain, which I'll come on to in a minute, maybe we won't get to see that. Red Bull, once again, time in memoriam. How long has this been going on? In the hands of one driver, it's P3. In the hands of another driver, it's not even making Q3, or not even Q2 in this case, yet again. That sound you're hearing is everyone in Mexico taking a sip of tea and saying, interesting. Will we ever learn the truth about Red Bull? It cannot be that Max Verstappen is taking the 6th or 7th fastest car on the grid to multiple world championships. It also cannot be the case that they've employed 5, 6, 7 drivers in a row who are incapable of getting the grid's fastest car out of Q3. What's going on? Will we ever know? I'm not sure. But Yuki Tsunoda in the theoretically much slower Racing Bulls, 2 tenths slower than Max Verstappen. Definitely the star performer of qualifying for me. And the Williams justifying their hype as the 5th best car on the grid. Both cars into Q3 for, I don't know since when. Maybe it happened a couple of times last year. But if they can do that repeatedly this year, that represents a big step forward from them. But yeah, Lawson, his lap was messy. It was all over the place. It was a disaster even. And that was kind of the tale for a lot of people in qualifying. There was a lot of messy laps, a lot of sliding around, a lot of understeer from a lot of people. It was amazing. Whether it's just down to the track being very green, I don't know. Whether there was a change of wind, but no one seemed to be dialed in apart from the McLarens. What is there else to talk about Mercedes? George Russell into P4, Kimi Antonelli, like Liam Lawson, down out in Q3. Apparently he damaged his car during the lap, whether that was running over debris or curbs or whatever, I'm not quite sure, but we won't pass judgment on Kimi Antonelli based on this performance. But were Mercedes trying to go galaxy brain yet again, something that they tripped themselves up on so many times over the last 3 years with Lewis? Out on mediums in Q1, why? You're going to get through on mediums, why even try it? I don't understand. It just makes no sense to me. So going into next session in the race tomorrow, back in my youth, wet races, which is what we're expecting to see, were always the most exciting ones. It threw jeopardy, the out and out pace on the grid went out the window and it was all on the drivers. But in this next new generation of cars, that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. If it's more than spitting, the FIA red flag the race. No rain is particularly chucking down with much rain, whereas in the past we've raced in what seemed by today's standards like monsoons. Think of Japan, Mount Fuji in 2007. We'd never race in that now. Lewis Hamilton's arguably greatest ever win, Silverstone 2008. Would we even race in those conditions now? The offset between the full wets and the intermediates, no one wants to use the full wets. Everyone always wants to use the intermediates, which means everyone's always in the same tyre at the same time. There's no offsets there. And with the dry line on the track, no one wants to pull offline to overtake because there's too much penalty going onto the wet stuff. So they want to keep it on the dry line, which means overtaking is impossible, especially in this generation of huge cars. So I'm hopeful that a wet race will bring a bit of excitement, throw jeopardy up into the air, and it will become somewhat of a lottery. But wet races in recent memory have become processional. That's if the FIA ever throw the green flag out in the first place. Fingers crossed. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. just to see a race that's 2 hours delayed, and I could have got up at 7. In terms of expectations, go to the McLarens. If all things being equal, they're clearly the fastest car, but we've seen time and again from this team that having the fastest car doesn't necessarily deliver him the wins that it should. I wouldn't count out Max. And if it's properly raining, the deluded Lewis Hamilton fan in me believes that he can still get a result. Anyway, I'll see you after that one. Cheers.
F1 Focus Instant Reaction with Huw Griffin.